Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector. And yes, this is my second live stream of the day and the third video that I will have released today. And no, you should not be reading into the fact that I am actually going live on a Wednesday at approximately 7 o'clock, which is coincidentally exactly what you guys asked me for when I probed you on Sunday night as to when you might want to see an additional live stream. Most people came back and basically said Wednesday at 7 a.m. It's just coincidental that I am on here live Wednesday at approximately 7 o'clock. That's all that I'm saying. It's a coinky dink. Don't read into it. It is good to see you people. I want to thank everybody who will make their way back here for, again, my second live stream of the day. And here's what I will tell you. I am not a perfect individual. Now, I know to some of you, you are now shocked and appalled. Your mouth is agape as you stare at the screen in shock and disbelief that I am not perfect. I am not perfect. I make mistakes. And I recently made a mistake involving PayPal. And I was ready to pay for my mistake. And we are going to spend some time talking about this in this live stream here. Before we get going on that topic, I want to say hello to some comic book swoldiers that showed up in this chat at 7 o'clock for a 7:30 live stream. I decided to go live early because I saw you guys in here talking and I was like, you know what? We are just going to go live right now. Right now, we're going to do it. Shout out to my Canadian brother, Rush Diehard up there. Rob Snyder, how you doing, brother? Robert, one of our newest Patreon members. Welcome, brother. I absolutely appreciate you joining the live stream, Connecting Comics, a recent trade partner. Fantastic trader. I gotta say to you, this guy right here, shout out to you, brother. Anytime you are ready to make some magic happen again, you let me know. Tina, the OG Blue Wrench is in here. New Blue Wrench. Matt Woods is in the house. It's good to see you, brother. Thank you for coming to the live stream. My man Wes is in here. It is always good to see you, my friend. Scrolling down, seeing what else, folks. My man Harvey Abel is in here. He will check this in on a replay, but it is good to see you, Harvey Abel. Thank you for coming by. Scrolling. Young Matthew is in the house. It is good to see you. And again, thanks to all of you guys who are making time out to actually join for this live stream. I see the other Reggie is in here. Reggie Simmons with 2 G's. How you doing, brother? It is good to see you. We always have to acknowledge someone named Reggie or Simmons. And if you are Reggie Simmons, you get some extra special attention. Welcome to you, brother. It's good to see you for real. So here's the thing. I'm having a lot of fun tongue in cheek by saying, that I'm perfect and all this stuff. We all know that I'm not, right? So I make mistakes and I am always prepared. Whenever I'm making a mistake, I am prepared to acknowledge that I have made a mistake. I'm prepared to own it because that's just important, right? Who doesn't make mistakes, right? And I will promise you that when I do make a mistake, I tend to beat myself up over that mistake more than anyone else possibly could. And so rest assured that I am well aware of the fact that I jack stuff up. Because it happens. I have a lot going on and I do the best that I can. And what prompted me to do this live stream is a couple of things. 2 things have happened in the last 2 days that are prompting me to talk about this right now. One of those things is the fact that Jim Mint released a video late last night and I actually shared it. He had something that is going on with his PayPal account that struck a chord with me. And I am not going to profess to know the intricate details of what exactly happened. I don't know what the truth is, if you will. I just know that my man is in a jacked up situation and it's tough. And I I feel for where he is. Let's put it that way. And I sent him a message earlier today, wishing him, saying, I wish you good thoughts, right, for this thing to resolve itself. But I watched his video last night and it touched me. And it touched me because I recently had an incident with PayPal as well. And I was not honestly going to record a video about this thing because and this is me talking about my situation. I try to handle things as best I can in a way that I feel is appropriate for the situation, right? But I had a situation with them and I was not going to speak on it. But today, what's crazy is that the issue actually resolved itself. And I had no hope, no belief that this was actually going to happen, but it resolved itself. And my message to Jim was, bro, my situation is not like yours, but my situation was a rough one. My situation was resolved, and I remain hopeful that your situation will resolve itself in a way that makes sense and that makes you whole. That was essentially the gist of my message. Probably not in those words, but that was the sentiment behind it. So, I'll give you the scenario. This is basically what happened. If you guys remember, recently I showed some really awesome books that I picked up from a seller that I've gotten to know over a period of time. It was the Kang the Conqueror, Avengers issue number 3. It was X-Men number 5. And it was Ultimate Fallout, the first appearance of Miles Morales. Those were the 3 books. And essentially what happened is I basically negotiated the deal with this particular seller, again, a person that I know, and I sent the money to their email address via PayPal. And I waited a couple of minutes, was like, hey, did you get the money? I just want to make sure you got it. They did not. So I'm like, well, why didn't you get the money? I use the same email address that I've always used, right? So I go to check it. And I'm like, well, what is the email address that you have? So they send it to me. I'm like, okay, cool. I go look at the email address that I just sent the money to. It is not the same. It is not the same email address, right? So I immediately send another payment to the correct email address. And I use it's the same dollar amount. I use the same description for what I was sending that money to my friend, if you will. And I let it go. And then I immediately try to resolve the issue by canceling the first transaction. I couldn't cancel it. So I'm like, okay, my only option is to say that it was fraud. Okay, well, I'll just say that it's fraud. And then they'll, contact me, or they'll be like, yeah, he just made a mistake, blah, blah, blah. So I did that. And then like 2 days later, they're like, no, that's denied. There's no fraud in your account. And I'm like, okay, well, that's true. No big deal. Right. So what's my resolve here? What's my way to make this transaction correct or to invalidate it? And long story short, I am messaging the automated system saying, hey, I made a mistake. Can you help me to reverse this transaction? The answer I get back is basically no. So I'm like, how is that possible? Like, I made a mistake, just reverse the transaction. No. And I'm giving you guys a short response, right? So I end up calling. Well, they were basically like, hey, they said, no, we can't do it, but you can reach out to the seller and have the seller resolve it. So I reach out to the seller. I'm like, hey, bro, I made a mistake with this thing. I sent this money. I think that's your account. And he was like, let me look into it. A week later, 2 weeks later, he's going back and forth with PayPal, trying to get access to this account. It is not actually his account. It has no association with it. He thought it might have been a long forgotten PayPal account or email address. Lo and behold, it is not his at all. He's like, I spent a lot of time on this. I don't know how to resolve it. I'm like, cool, no problem. So I start reaching out to them again. And I get him on the phone. I'm like, hey, so here's what happened. I basically sent a transaction at 10:30 at night. My seller did not receive it. So I sent a second transaction with the exact same description, exact same dollar amount, 5 minutes apart, to basically the same email address with like a minor deviation. You can see that I sent 2 payments, and they basically told me we cannot reverse the transaction. So that didn't go over too well. So we talked about that a little bit. And again, I'm giving you guys the shorter version, right? I am like, all right, cool. So I'm on the phone with these people for like, 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, well, here's the thing, no disrespect, but is there someone else that I can speak with, like a manager? Maybe we can have a different kind of dialogue. She says to me, her name was Yolanda. Yolanda was awesome. She yelled at me at one point. I was like, why are you yelling at me? So she toned it down, but she was cool, right? So I reach out and they transfer me to a manager, and I wait on hold for another, 5 minutes or so. Manager gets online. Yolanda says, the manager's going to tell you the same thing that I said. Sure enough, the manager basically said, hey, I'm sorry, but here's the deal. He basically says that once a transaction is sent with PayPal to an email address, they cannot legally pull the money out of the account. And I'm like, well, check it out. It's the same dollar amount, same description, 5 minutes apart. Clearly, that was a mistake, right? We can probably agree that I didn't do that on purpose. Yes, that is, I would say that. And then they were like, but there's nothing we can do. We can't pull the money back. And I'm like, well, so what can you do? And they're like, well, we can send the person an email and ask them to send the money back to you. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound like that's going to work. That does not sound like a good idea. And I was like, I've already sent the person the message and they didn't respond. So I was like, well, if you're basically telling me that that's all that you can do for me, let's just do that and hope for the best. Guy was like, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and take care of that in the next 5 minutes. I'm like, cool, thanks, bro. All right. Talk to my wife. I was like, so that money's gone. I'm in the comic book shop today. I'm talking about Jim Min's situation. And then I start talking about my own situation because I'm paying with PayPal at the register. That's part of why it came up. I tell the story. I walk out of the comic book shop. I look at my phone. There's a transaction that I just completed and a refund for the full dollar amount that I inadvertently sent to someone. And I put my books in the car and then I walked back into the comic book shop and I said, you will not believe what just happened. And in that moment, I was energized by the fact that someone actually did the right thing. Because the truth is that PayPal wasn't going to do the right thing, right? Because it is clear that I made a mistake. And they weren't interested in fixing that. They say that there's laws in place that prevent that. And I'm like, well, laws, true. But then there's also common sense. And there's a right and a wrong. And I'm like, dude, come on. I am very thankful for the seller or the person, the unknown person that I will be emailing later tonight to thank them. The unknown person that actually returned my money to me. I am thankful for that person and energized by the fact that there are still good people out there in the world, right? You do good things and some good stuff actually does happen. I was very surprised because I honestly had no hope that the email was going to get read, much less get read and then somebody respond to it. And in my head, what I began to think of as I was driving home was that maybe the person saw my first email and thought that it was a scam. They saw the money go in, they saw my email, and they thought that it was a scam. One of those things you reply back and then all of a sudden their bank account gets drained, right? But the PayPal email, probably caught their attention. They were probably like, oh, this actually isn't a scam. Somebody actually made a mistake. Let me send this money back. Whoever that person was, I am very thankful for that individual out there, because what was an awesome deal with one transaction was an awful deal. No, it was actually probably a slightly less than great deal with double transactions. So again, it's just one of those things. I reached out to Jim Min. I was like, bro, I commiserate with you. I remain hopeful that your situation will be resolved essentially the way that mine has, with me being made whole for what was clearly a mistake. So just, and again, I wasn't going to talk about this topic because it's a little negative, right? But it also now has had a positive outcome, which I feel makes it a great story to share with people about what, when bad things happen, there can be some positive that comes out of that, right? And so that's part of the reason why I'm now sharing it with you guys. And again, sending out some positive thoughts to my man Jim Mint with the hope that he will be made whole. So let me scroll up. So happy for you, Reggie. I think I'm glad PayPal doesn't go around pulling money back either. Yeah, well, I struggle with that. Like, I get it. I get it, right? So I'm talking to the person, Yolanda. And Yolanda and I, we had a robust conversation. Let me tell you that she, at the end, I started cracking up and telling a couple of jokes. And she was like, I can tell you like to argue. And I was like, yes, indeed, I do. She threw out two analogies for me. She said, what would happen if a boyfriend gave his girlfriend some money and then decided he wanted to take that money back? I was like, you know what? That's legit. But did the boyfriend send two transactions for the exact same money to the girlfriend with slightly different addresses? That analogy does not hold water here. In that situation, completely agree. Don't take the money back. Her second thing, after I destroyed the first one, she said, well, what would happen if this were Western Union, where money actually gets sent to somebody, et cetera, et cetera? I'm like, true. That's a great example. Western Union, you have to go claim the money. You have to show up, show ID, claim the money. You have to know that it's there to be able to go get it. That is a proactive intent by someone, right? This was an errant email that was sent to someone that was clearly a mistake. The person took no action to claim the money at all. That is very different from money being extracted from someone's account, right? Two transactions, same dollar amount, same description, 5 minutes apart. That's almost the same email address. That is a mistake. Come on, bro. Come on, right? But I do agree that it is good that they don't do that. But sometimes I think people have to step outside of their role and use some common sense to make decisions that are good for the individual. Right. And in this case, no one was willing to do that. But thankfully, we had an honest citizen out there that was like, here you go. Here's the money back. And again, this is not necessarily, and I probably should have put this up front. This is not necessarily to bang on PayPal. PayPal's business is to move money from one person to another, to offer some buyer protection, that kind of stuff. I get it. And they do a good job of it. They do a good job of it. In this situation, it did not work out in my favor, where I would have been like, so what are my options here? Like I said to him, what would happen if I send that email, they don't respond? You send your email, they don't respond. There is no activity on their account for years, maybe because this person passed away. Heaven forbid this person passed away. What happens then? They were like, the money goes to the estate. I'm like, just give me my money back. I just need my money. I need to buy some comics. Let me see what else you guys are. Going to make sure I don't have any credit with PayPal in the future. I have a credit account. I don't even use it, man. I don't even use it, but I have it just in case I get frisky one day and want to do some stuff. I wonder if Jim was using friends and family for sales. I don't know. I honestly don't know. You know, I still do some friends and family transactions, but so much of my stuff actually comes through my website. That's basically how I do most of my sales. So when you look at it, the percentage of friends and family is very, very small. And the amount that is just the regular transaction is probably disproportionately high. I do not know the details of Jim Mint's situation, to be honest with you. I would encourage you guys to head over if you want, watch his video. I'm certain that he's going to do his situation much more justice than I am. Just make sure you don't have any kids in the room, because Jim got a little feisty. He got a little feisty on that. It was a good video. My man was mad. My man was mad, and justifiably so. Justifiably so. Let me see. What does this thing say? There was a comment here I wanted to read about Jim. Oh man, I lost it. Where did that go? Dr. Dre in the house. How you doing, Dr. Dre? There was a comment here and it got away from me. Do I use friends and family or goods and services? It depends on the situation, to be honest with you. Like I was just saying, the vast majority of my transactions are actually not friends and family, just because most of them are through my website. You know, people reach out like, how do you want to do it? Do it through the website. That way, at the end of the year, come tax time, I don't have to worry about anything. A lot of that stuff is like, I print off my report, I'm going to give it to the CPA and let her do her thing with that stuff. So I don't do a whole lot friends and family. Most of it is just regular transactions directly through my thing. So let me see, scrolling through. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I get that there are dishonest people out there. I get that people will try to run scams. I get that PayPal has to be smart about things. But at the same time, and they were like, we get calls like this from time to time, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, if you get calls like this from time to time where you actually believe the person that is talking to you and that has documentation to demonstrate this, then maybe you should put a process in place to allow for these types of things. And, I led with, look, I messed up and I'm asking you to help me to correct my mistake. Like, and I'm upfront about it and I'm sincere. You guys know me. Like, I'm telling you the situation, I'm laying it out, and I'm like, I need you to help me out of something that I created for myself, and they said no. And I get it, but I'm like, I don't get it. Thankfully, again, it had a happy ending. It had a happy ending. So, that's a good question. Would sending invoices mitigate the risk of this happening again, or do you not send invoices because of friends and family thing? That's actually a legitimate question, right? So what it was is that the email address was already on file for some reason or another. Like, I saw the name of the guy, I hit the button. It just happened to be the wrong email that happened to be saved. I don't remember saving that. I don't remember, like, I had never sent money to that email address before. I don't even know how it showed up in the system yet. It was there. So I don't know if PayPal was connected to my email in some way and sucked in maybe an errant email that I sent before. I don't know what it was. But invoices, I wouldn't send the invoice, would I be? Because I was sending the person money. They would have to send me the invoice and then I would reply to the email or the invoice. That might be the better way. Or I'd be like, dude, give me your email address. I cut and paste, right? That might be the better way to actually handle it. But yeah, it was clearly a mistake. And again, I'm happy that it had a good outcome. King of the Golden State is in the house. How you doing, brother? It's good to see you. Scrolling down through some of the comments here, had a same issue recently with my LCS, except the wrong email didn't even have PayPal, said they couldn't do anything. So I had to dispute it with the bank. Bank disputed wrong transaction. Yeah, man. And they were saying to me that because the email was associated with a PayPal account, that's why it automatically went through as a claim. And I'm like, okay, but they didn't take a proactive step. They didn't like hit a button and be like, my money, or send me an invoice, right? It was clearly a mistake. But, I think that there are important lessons here for me. For me, I have, and you guys know this, like, I have a bias for action, and that bias for action has good things and bad things that come out of it. One of the downsides is that I make mistakes, right? Because I want to you order something from me. By the time you get up from your desk, I'm already printing out the label to put on your box. That is my bias for action. And I'm doing like 8 things at once because that's just how I operate. And so that bias for action gets me in trouble sometimes. And it is, but it has, for me, for my career, for my family, that bias for action has a lot more upside than it does downside. And so I try to control it. I try to mitigate it. But again, it's one of those things where I can always improve. And at the end of the day, that is part of what I am learning from this, is that it could have been a very expensive lesson. And I have paid, as many of you probably have, paid really expensive lessons, right? You pay for your education, right? And so I am definitely learning some things from this. So scrolling down through, so why do they have a friends? So the friends and family, honestly, is that so that they don't take out the transaction fees, right? Like if one of my siblings called me and it's like, hey, I need like $1. I don't want to have to send them $1 plus 3%, because that's what PayPal would take out. I send them $1 and they get the full $1. So that's like the benefit of it, but it comes with no protection, no buyer protection, no dispute resolution, none of that kind of stuff, because they're like, well, that's your friend and your family. You should have a relationship and be able to work that out with them. We don't have to get involved. So they don't touch those transactions. And there are some people that will say, hey, I want it friends and family. If you can't send it that way, then send it the regular rate, goods and services, but add 3% to it. And so some people will pay that 3% because they want buyer protection in case they're dealing with somebody where the situation goes wrong. In this case, it was an email address that I was sending it to. And I guess when you have an email address, I don't know, I don't want to read into it. I may need to go do some more research, but maybe when you have an email address, I don't remember selecting goods and services or friends and family. I don't recall. I just hit the button, typed. Oh, maybe it was at the bottom. Maybe there's a lesson to be learned there. Let me scroll through. Let me scroll through. PayPal needs the better, sensible app coming along. Yeah, well, there's a couple of people that were talking about that kind of stuff, you know. So there we go. Well said, brother. Philly born, the unjust never prosper. Glad it worked out. Man, the thing is, brother, I try to put out good into the world with the hope, not that it'll come back to me, but when I make a mistake, that there'll be some positives that come out of it for me. So I'm very glad that that worked. A bank could have reversed it. True. If you're talking to me, true. If I had used a bank. I use PayPal. If you guys remember from all the videos that I've done, I actually use PayPal to keep my comic book funds separate from my personal funds, and the two never mingle. That to me, I just don't let those things mingle, right? Because it's much easier for me if my wife doesn't see transactions, and if she has to not worry about what I spend because it's completely separate and never comes out of family stuff. So I keep those things completely separate. And so I don't have, I do have a debit card that backs up my transactions, but most of what I spend, well, let me restate. Everything that I spend comes out of my PayPal balance. That is how I keep it separate. Church and state. Robert's like, just get the attorneys involved. But here's the thing, man. Had this not resolved itself, honestly, at a certain point, I let stuff go, to be honest with you. At a certain point, I'm like, you know what? I have to learn a lesson from that. I have to do better. And I let it go. And when I was talking to Yolanda, I was like, Yolanda, if it was $5, I wouldn't care. But it's not $5. And Yolanda was like, I'm gonna be honest with you. She was like, if it was $3, I'm gonna argue because that's my money. Like we had the conversation, and the conversation was escalated, and then we de-escalated it, and we talked as people. You know what I'm saying? We talked as people like, look, this is jacked up. Yeah, it's jacked up. Like we had that kind of conversation, and then I took it to the manager. So it's one of those things that even if I have a confrontational kind of thing with somebody, I said this to her, I was like, I'm not mad at you, right? I'm not upset at you, but this policy does not make sense. This protocol does not make sense, And so part of it was they also record these types of exchanges. And my thing is, when people go back and record or listen to these things and start to think about what policies and procedures do we want to change, I want them to hear a logical argument from someone that is trying to make people understand how what they are doing doesn't work in every situation. And that's part of why I had to debate it and kind of continue it, because I needed other people, not Yolanda or this manager, but I needed other people to be able to hear when they listen some of that stuff back. So there's a couple of things that I try to accomplish when I do some of this stuff. Tina's on it, man. Tina's welcoming everybody. And Andrew Rogers is in the house. He says, first time watcher. Andrew, welcome to you, my friend. You get one pass with that double G. You get one pass. After that, my man, we put you in the penalty box. No, I'm joking, but it is 1G though. 1G. Andrew, seriously, welcome to the live stream, man. I hope that you have some fun up in here. We are doing a little bit of an impromptu stream here, man, on a Wednesday night, just having a little bit of fun with folks. So I'm commiserating over what could have went really wrong with the transaction that I had a couple of weeks ago, but thankfully it was resolved today for the better. So scrolling, honestly, I understand this isn't a bash PayPal vid, but I continue to hear so many negative stories, not just you and Jim Men. So I've lost faith and confidence in their business. Dark Ranger, I mean, brother, I don't tell people how to feel, bro. That's one thing that I don't do, is I don't tell people how to feel. And one of the questions becomes, right? If companies aren't doing what you think that they should do and believe that they should do, then you have to start exploring alternatives. And the challenge that I had as I noodled upon this topic is, what are my alternatives, right? And I could stand up a merchant account associated with my e-commerce store, which I could do, but potentially my fees associated with transactions would be higher, which means that either I would make less money per book, or I would charge people more money per book. Neither one of those things is attractive to me because I try to give a fair price. Outside of doing a merchant account and processing, Visas and MasterCards, the next question becomes, what other platform could you use for this purpose? You could use Venmo for person-to-person kind of things, but I don't know that there's the buyer protection with Venmo for commerce, right? And I don't know from an e-commerce platform whether there's the integration of Venmo on the back end with an e-commerce store. So I think that when I personally start to explore the options that I am aware of, none of those options seem to be sufficient to meet my needs or the needs of the people that I do business with. And so that's where I start to struggle. It's like, what is the alternative? You know what I'm saying? So that's not to say that there isn't one. That's not to say that we should not look to find other alternatives. Yeah, and I'll just leave it there. I'll just leave it there. So I am not going to drag this thing out. I'm testing out the new time slot. Well done, Master Blaster. The Blue Wrench is over here testing out the waters for me, trying to do an impromptu poll. I appreciate that. Travis, how you doing? He says, hey Reggie, my son is watching as well. Hello to Travis and his son. It is good to see both of you guys. Welcome to the Regie Collects channel, and certainly welcome to anyone else that is watching the channel for the first time. I want to welcome all you guys, and I definitely want to encourage you, if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, to go ahead and do that. That way you can stay abreast of all the content that I release here from the channel, but it also makes you eligible for the various giveaways that I do every single week. And this week, it is a really awesome Batman book right here. The first full appearance of Killer Croc 9.2. This book is going to be given away this Sunday night on the Ready, Set, Go preview show at 7:30 on Sunday. So check it out if you guys can. The Wednesday night squad says Master Blaster. That's what's up. Brother, check it out. If you can get bags of money with dollar signs on them, you keep hustling, brother. Please share the secrets to where those bags get dropped off, because I could use a couple of those bags, my man. Well done, Sandoval. Well done. He says the PayPal are gibbing haters. No, PayPal's doing good stuff. PayPal's doing good stuff. I just think that sometimes their policies don't work for people, right? Sometimes, and every company, every person makes mistakes, get things wrong. The question isn't if they get it wrong. The question is, how do they resolve it, right? Because everybody messes up, right? And the question becomes, how do you fix it? How do you make it right for the individuals that are involved? Are you using common sense and applying that to the situation? Or are you just like a robot reading your script? That's where it's not cool. But I want to thank you guys for hanging out just a little bit. This is definitely an impromptu live stream where I wanted to kind of share my experience on the tailcoats of something that happened to another YouTuber, which again, I hope gets resolved in a positive fashion for him, right? At the end of the day, my concern is not necessarily for PayPal because they have their money, but my concern is for the YouTuber that is not in a good situation. So I hope that situation resolves itself. But I want to thank you guys for joining me here this evening for just a little bit. Maybe we are testing out a new time slot. I don't know. We'll have to see how that works out. But if you guys need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects, or you can send me an email to reggie@regiecollects.com. If you're feeling frisky, check out the website, regiecollects.com. Put up a new blog post, and I also posted up a couple of new books for sale. Check it out. Talk to you guys soon. Be well.